Welcome to Cohn and Hensley. That's Ryan Hensley. I'm Grant Cohn, a special Tuesday afternoon version of the Monday morning show. Ryan, I like your sweat jacket. It looks great. Track jacket.
Representing for my son's basketball team. The school I used to coach at.
Oh, nice. What's the school called?
I'm going to leave that out, but he's...
as soon as I asked the question, I was like, that's too personal. Anyway, we're here to talk 49ers.
Correct.
And instead of talking about bye week, what they learned, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about Brock Purdy and stuff like that. And we're going to talk about this upcoming game. But first, we want to talk potential trades. Let's go to the offseason.
All right.
A little curveball. There are a number of players on the 49ers who are up for extensions at the end of this year. Some will get extensions. Some won't. Some will get traded. I'm thinking of 3 players in particular. Let's go one by one, starting with the big one. Brandon Aiyuk will be up for an extension. He could make a lot of money. It's looking like he could cash in $20 million a year, 4 years, $80 million, 5 years, $100 million. They've already given almost $24 million a year to Deebo Samuel. It's a lot of expensive players in this offense. Do you think the Niners will extend Brandon Aiyuk or trade him or let him just play out his contract?
Honestly, it's hard to tell you what I think they can do. What I know that they shouldn't do, what they really can't do, they can play one more year together, whether they do the extension and structure it to where it's, back heavy, or they do the franchise tag. They can do one more year with Brandon Aiyuk. Whether they do or not, I don't know. Maybe they get enough opportunity with draft capital and a trade, and they trade him this offseason. But what they can't do, in my opinion, is go past next season, right? They can do this season, obviously. They can do next season by one of those options we talked about. But after next season, I believe Deebo Samuel is going to be getting like $28 million, close like that, something like that in 2025. You can't have BA making 20 plus million and Deebo making 28 million. So to me, it's either this season or next season, which will be the last time we see this duo on the same team together. Now, they could also re-sign BA, extend BA, and trade Deebo, which is another option that has to be considered. But the 49ers right now are 27th in passing attempts. How do you justify paying 2 wide receivers over $20 million a year when you're passing the ball 27th in the NFL? It makes no sense. So we're looking at the last year or two of those two together, in my opinion, one way or the other.
Yeah. And it's not like you can use Aiyuk as a part-time running back. He's a real wide receiver. And in that sense, he's not the greatest fit for this offense. To me, this kind of reminds me of what the Niners did with McGlinchey, although Aiyuk's a lot better than McGlinchey. But what they said is like, we'd like to keep McGlinchey, but we're not going to pay top dollar for a left tackle and top dollar for a right tackle. You can't do it. We can't have 2 expensive offensive tackles. A lot of teams do. The Niners decided they don't want that or they can't afford it. I think they're going to make the same decision at wide receiver. It'd be one thing if Brandon Aiyuk were a number 1 wide receiver, the kind of guy who is a perennial Pro Bowler, but he's not. And like you said, they don't pass enough to really fully take advantage of him. For what they're going to have to pay him, they're probably better off trading him for a first-round pick and trying to replace him with someone on a rookie deal, which is doable. There are really good wide receivers that come out every year. And again, Aiyuk is not elite. He's very good. They should be able to replace him. I would trade him.
I think it's tough for Brandon Aiyuk. I don't know what limitations I want to put on Brandon Aiyuk on this team. And the reason why I say that again, 27th in passing attempts, he's not getting a ton of opportunity. It's a very small sample size every season for Brandon Aiyuk. And he's still trending to have his best season of the year. I think he's still trending 1,400 yards, which would be his best season. Brandon Aiyuk, to me, could be a number 1 wide receiver on a lot of teams. Maybe not top 15 teams in the NFL. But on some of these other teams, he could be a number 1 wide receiver. And I think it's in Brandon Aiyuk's best interest, if we're being real, to go to another team. If I'm Brandon Aiyuk, I want to go to another team as far as contract and so forth. And as far as just his career, his overall career, if your team's passing 27th in the NFL in passing attempts, you're not going to get a lot of opportunity to shine. If he's 1,400 yards on the 49ers, who are 27th in passing attempts, what would he be on one of these teams that are passing a lot more frequently than the 49ers?
He'd get more targets. He'd get more yards. He'd get more touchdowns. He'd get more opportunities. My thing with Aiyuk is like, he's an excellent route runner. He gets open as well as anyone in the league. But when he goes up against the best corners, that he can't just turn around and make them look silly. When he really has a legit challenge, best against the best, and there's a guy right in his hip pocket when the ball's there, he has these really long arms, and people talk about him like, he's 6 feet tall, but he's like 6'5" with those arms. I've never really seen him make use of those arms in contested catch situations. It seems like when there's someone draped all over him, he often doesn't come down with the ball, and he almost plays smaller than he is. So he's a very good wide receiver in my eyes, but I don't think he makes those 50-50 plays that you would expect someone of his build and his pedigree to make. And once he does make those, I'll call him elite.
Yeah, I don't think he's elite or in the upper echelon. Like, he's not Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase type of
Tyreek.
wide receiver. Right, he's not one of those guys, but he is.
Mm.
He's up there, like you said. He's very good. He's very good.
He's
and
like right outside the top 10.
Yeah, that sounds about fair. And he does everything you want from him from, in the offseason. He's a leader by example. He's such a good role model for these young receivers coming up, watching him, how hard he works on the offseason, training camp, practices. All that is fantastic about Brandon Aiyuk, and there's value in that as well.
Mm-hmm. He's consistent. Yeah. He's durable. He's excellent.
Yeah.
He's also going to cost $20 million a year. You're spending $24 million on Debo. What? $16 million on Kittle.
Well,
how much on McCaffrey?
Right.
How much on Trent?
Well, here's the question then, Grant. Debo or Brandon Aiyuk? If they have to come to that decision, like I said, they can play another year together next season. Mathematically, it makes sense. But with all the other contracts in place, it doesn't make sense to me beyond that. So when the 49ers have to ultimately decide, who do they choose and who would you choose?
Well, let me look at the contracts real quick. If the Niners were to trade Debo Samuel after this year, it would come with $35 million in dead money. It's like you can't. If they traded him next year, it would come with $26 million in dead money. Right. You can't. Like, they made their choice. They went with Debo. Maybe that wasn't the right call. He's older. He's not as durable. He takes over games in ways that Aiyuk never has. And
can they restructure with him? Can they trade and restructure, like create a deal? We're going to trade him so and so. We're going to restructure his contract like this to erase that dead money.
That's beyond my pay grade. I was an English major in school. I read poetry.
Yeah. Got a great school though. UCLA Bruins.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good school. It's good school, man. That's why you're good at what you do. That and your dad. Your dad has taught you a lot, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, he's excellent.
Best guess. Well, thank you. Yes. I'll tell him you said that.
Yeah.
Best guess. You think Aiyuk's on this team next year?
Yes. Next year.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay. See how it plays out.
See how it plays out.
Bookmark this. Got to come back to it.
Ivan says, Grant, we should do like the Raiders, clean house and sit the quarterback and see what wonders it would do. Let's clean house entirely.
We're 5. They're 5-3. Man.
5-3.
Yeah.
Chris Tallarico says BA was never going to stay here. He was always going to test free agency. He doesn't fit Kyle's scheme. He doesn't seem to want to be here either. Debo has less trade value. They should trade BA. I think you get a first-round pick for BA, and I feel like it's kind of like when the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs for a first-round pick and drafted Justin Jefferson. That was a good move.
The thing about BA, man, he's so good, but again, if you're going to run this offense, we're only passing 26th, 7th in the NFL, you don't really need BA. Like, I personally think BA is the most irreplaceable player on the 49ers offense right now. I think Debo is his value is a lot lower with CMC on the team. CMC can do most of the things that Debo can do. There's no one else on this team that can do what Brandon Aiyuk does. The problem is the 49ers don't use the things that Brandon Aiyuk does well often enough to justify it.
Yeah. Jewish guy says, Grant, you mentioned not wanting to press Kyle too hard about Brock Purdy benching. What goes into that? You don't want him to storm off, just a pro understanding. I mean, the way I think about it is like in those press conferences, sometimes you can have back and forth, but like you really don't want to get in an argument with the guy. If you disagree with Kyle Shanahan's answer, he gave you an answer and you have the forum. I have the forum to go write an article and give my opinion. But when I said, are you going to bench the quarterback, and he said no, and I said why, and he said because you don't just bench a quarterback for no reason. It's not. I don't think it's necessarily my professional spot to be like, well, I can give you a reason. Like he could be like, Grant, I don't care what you think. Write your article and let other people read it, or not, which is totally fair. It's not my place all of a sudden disagree with Kyle to his face. I could do that in my article. I just feel like I was there to get the answer. He didn't say why. I followed up and said, say why. He did. And I was like, all right, that's your answer.
I thought it was a great question, man. You're a journalist, and we need more people just asking questions like that. Now you got him on record of how he feels about the situation, and perfect. Now we know, and it's great. It was a great question.
That's all it is. Funny Box 5544 says, do you think D'Amico Ryans would have liked Trey Lance on his team? I personally think CJ is kind of similar to Lance with more experience. Man, I don't know.
I've been pushing back on this one a lot. Like everyone knows, I believed in Trey Lance's potential as a quarterback had he been given the opportunity and time. The key word is time.
Right.
CJ Stroud does not need the time that Trey Lance. He's a much more polished passer. People comparing Trey Lance to CJ, I don't get it. And to be honest, if D'Amico wanted Trey Lance, he could have got him.
True.
Yeah.
James Wells says, I really don't care what they do as long as they stop pretending they can win a Super Bowl without an real elite quarterback. Check the other contenders. Well, we'll see what Brock Purdy's all about this week against Jacksonville. All right, another possible player the Niners could trade. Talanoa Hufanga. When the Niners traded up to draft Jair Brown, a lot of people thought, okay, that he's going to replace Tashawn Gibson in a couple of years. But Jair Brown really profiles more as like an in-the-box, strong safety. He's not that fast. He's a lot like Talanoa Hufanga, who was an all-pro last year and may or may not have deserved it, but he was. And his resume is golden. And it's possible he's going to get paid top of the market money for a safety. And it's possible the Niners never, ever intended to give Talanoa Hufanga that kind of money. And they're sort of planning for a future where they don't have him. So my question to you is, do you think the 49ers will explore trades of Talanoa Hufanga this offseason rather than give him an extension? Because really it's one or the other.
Can't they? So they can't let his contract play out.
They could. And it doesn't seem like he would be necessarily the malcontent to like request a trade, but it's not necessarily how they do business for players who have done well. Yes.
Rob Stats pointed out a good statistic today. He's good at that. That's why they call him Stats, right?
That's why they call him Stats.
Dre Greenlaw, the combination of the 49ers linebackers, I know we're talking about Huff, and this ties to it. But the 49ers linebackers have missed 3 times the amount of tackles so far in the season that they did last year. We're seeing the same problem with Huff. Yeah, wow, exactly. And we're seeing the same problem with Huff. And so I'm not sure where this is coming from. My best guess, and it doesn't really make sense, but my best guess is they're not bought into Wilkes, and they're not playing as hard for Wilkes as they did for D'Amico and Saleh. That's my best guess because it really doesn't make sense to me. I don't think they fell off athletically. I don't think Greenlaw and Warner fell off athletically. I don't think Huff fell off athletically. Now, Huff is nursing a knee injury. They said it might require a surgery before the season, and he's trying to play through the season and get surgery after the season. So maybe there's a little bit of that as well, but I really like Huff. But my point was with the linebackers, it's just this whole team right now is playing below their pay grade, below their level, below what we're used to. And so I'm not going to just say, oh, this is just Huff screwing up. It's the whole defense for whatever reason. I'm not sure what it is. And my hope is that he can get back on track because I really like Hufanga.
Yeah, but look, I'm just saying, like, with that all pro on his resume, the reputation that he has, the market that he has, he could get top of the market money at safety. And like, let me tell you what that is. Like Derwin James making $19 million a year. Minka Fitzpatrick making 18. Jamal Adams 17. Jesse Bates 16. Justin Simmons 15. Buda Baker 14.7.
What's Huff making right now? 2-3.
What's Huff making as a 5th round pick? Like nothing. So if they bring back Huff, he's getting $15 million a year minimum. $15 million a year. And I don't know if the Niners necessarily would give $15 million to any safety.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Or can they afford it? Either.
So, I mean, they might be more inclined to trade Talanoa Hufanga than Brandon Aiyuk. They might, I mean, we know they would pay more than $20 million a year for a wide receiver. They're doing it right now. Would they spend $15 million a year or more on a safety?
I don't think they would, but I
I
think
don't
they'll
know.
do it. Well, and Huff may want that money, but he just, like you said, he's not the type of player to just, I'm going to sit out and if I don't get an extension. I think what the
No.
49ers are going to do is just let the contract play out and deal with that when they have to deal with it. But again, I think Huff can bounce back. But you did make a great point regards to Jair Brown and Huff. Jair Brown is closer to Huff than he is to Gibson.
Yeah.
By
And if they
far.
let it play out with Hufanga and he leaves as a free agent, they'd get a comp pick, but nothing more than like a third. And if they trade him, what is he worth? I think with that all pro in his resume, he's worth at least a second, right? Could you get a first for Talanoa Hufanga?
No,
Maybe
not as a
second.
safety.
2
Yeah,
seconds? I don't know.
possibly.
Maybe.
Plus, I think we'll see Huff next year on the team at the same on the same contract, and I think they'll deal with that after the season. That's what my best guess would be with Huff. BA
All
is
right.
more of a mystery to me. There's so many options. I don't know what they're going to do with BA.
Jody Moore says, Grant, always enjoy ya. Thanks, Jody. Niners were always projected to lose 5 to 6 games and still go all the way. We are still in that lose window. Why do you feel like the wheels are falling off? Well, I mean, if you watch you've watched the 3-game losing streak. I mean, the offense is bad, the defense is bad, the run defense, the pass defense, the pass rush, like the run game, everything is bad right now. You can't just blame one thing, which to me is alarming. And if they lose this 4th game in a row, free fall mode. I don't know. That's why.
If you have to blame it on one thing, it has to fall on the head coach. I mean, the roster on this team is really good. So whenever you have a really good team losing to teams they shouldn't be losing to, that's on the coach. That's a coaching thing, and ultimately it's Kyle Shanahan who's accountable for all of that. If you have to blame one thing, it's Kyle, but it's a whole team loss lately.
Also, I feel like Kyle and Sean McVay are looking kind of similar these days. Guys who put together great coaching staffs, but those coaching staffs have been picked over. Those assistants are gone, and those 2 guys are sort of on their own, and neither one's offense looking so special right now. Like, it's looking like maybe the brains of those 2 operations are gone or elsewhere in the league. Sorry to be so crass, but it's hard to really compare Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel at this time in terms of just that's pure creativity.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. From a creative standpoint, it is true right now. Yeah.
Jewish guy says, is Debo's ego getting bigger since they haven't won since he's been injured? I don't know. I don't know. But I do feel like with Debo, that's another guy who'd be probably putting up better numbers on. Can you imagine Debo and Aiyuk on Miami? Debo would be taking over the league of Miami.
Yeah.
Here it's like they forgot how to use him.
Yeah.
Chris Tellerico says Huff's not good enough to pay top dollar for. Someone will, though.
Somebody will at some point.
Him.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, I think they would too. That's why they got Jair Brown. I don't know. I mean, he's good on a rookie deal, but I wouldn't pay that kind of money for him. $15 million a year for Huff. I don't even know what he does well right now. Sorry.
I'm anti-pay. I don't like pay. I always look at things from, I guess I can look for both angles, but I look at things from the team perspective, and I don't like paying players. I feel like it's almost always a mistake to play high, like unless you're a top 10 quarterback,
especially
an elite quarterback. Yeah, especially. Yeah, I don't like
because to me, like with defense is all about effort and passion and energy. And so you want guys who are hungry. And the Niners, like none of their defense isn't hungry anymore. People don't talk about that. But it's like Bosa, paid. Armstead, paid. Hargrave, paid. Warner, paid. Greenlaw, paid. Travarius, paid. Like more than half of their defense is well into their retirement fund, you know? Who's hungry on this team? What's the middle class on this team? The guys like Aziz and Jimmy Ward who are there to stop the run. Those guys are gone.
Unless you're like a Hall of Famer left tackle like Trent Williams or an elite quarterback, I don't want to pay you guys top money. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid that if I'm being honest. Now, if I'm a player, I'm trying to get paid, and congratulations. I like when players get paid for them personally. But from a 49ers like owner standpoint, I'm trying not to pay anybody if I can avoid it.
I mean, I just understand how the Niners pay for running backs and wide receivers and tight ends when the best teams in the league, Philly and Kansas City, consistently will let wide receivers and running backs go, get them on the cheap, and focus their money on the trenches. It's like Kansas City, they're like Tyreek Hill. Yeah, you're one of the most exciting players of all time. We're gonna sign a left tackle and a guard. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
That's
Those
what
are
it's
they're going to
about,
do.
man. It's about
Yeah.
quarterback and tackle. It's about quarterback and offensive line, then defensive line, then everything else. And with the 49ers, even John Lynch recently went on NBC and said his philosophy and Kyle's philosophy is quarterback, which we can question
D-line.
whether or not they've really
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
enough
Right.
there. And then it's
Yeah.
D-line,
Yeah.
right? So they
Well,
don't prioritize offensive line.
Jody Morris has 2 questions for you, Ryan. Are we exposed that we can't win without Trent and Debo? Lots of chatter about Sherm joining coaching staff. Good move for Niners.
For me, for you or Ryan, got it. Okay. Are we exposed that we can't win without Trent and Debo? I think Trent. I definitely think Trent. I think Trent is the big missing piece here over Debo. I think they'd be fine without Debo. They've proven that they can win without Debo in the past. It's Trent Williams. I mean, look at this. And I think we're going to talk about that later in the subject a little bit. But this offensive line, I had people vote. Where do you rank the 49ers offensive line? Excuse me. And surprisingly, most people that voted had him in the bottom half of the league as an offensive line. That's with Trent. Without him, they're definitely there. With Trent, I think they're higher than that. I was surprised 49 fans were so harsh on this offensive line. I think they're maybe more like 11 to 16 area with Trent Williams. But without him, definitely, they're at the bottom. So, yeah, I think they've been exposed without Trent. They have a hard time running the football. Sherm, I don't know. I like Sherm, but he has 0 experience. So we'll see. He's a smart guy, though.
I think the issue is more about Kyle, man. Like, look at McDaniel in Miami. He doesn't have Debo. He doesn't have Trent Williams. He doesn't have Juszczyk or Kittle or McCaffrey. And he has the number 1 run game in the league, averaging 5.9 yards per carry with Raheem Mostert. Now, he's got good wide receivers and stuff, but he doesn't have Trent Williams. Kyle's supposed to be like the most creative coach in the league. And if he only has McCaffrey, Aiyuk, Kittle, Juszczyk, it's like he can't score more than 17 points. We got to look at Kyle. He's not doing a good job as a head coach or as an offensive coordinator. And frankly, he wasn't last year either. And McCaffrey saved everyone. And now, like, once the league has gotten a real good look at how the Niners are using McCaffrey, it's not as effective anymore. What's the next wrinkle going to be? Last year, the wrinkle was McCaffrey. The year before that, the wrinkle was Debo as a running back. In 2019, the wrinkle was Raheem Mostert being the X factor as the backup running back. This year, I mean, is Kyle going to figure it out? To me, it's obviously Jordan Mason. Obviously Jordan Mason. He should be getting 10 carries a game minimum. And I think that could change everything. But I don't know if Kyle's going to do it. McDaniel would.
It could be Jordan Mason. It could be Brock Purdy and Brandon Aiyuk. They're not passing a lot. That's the other wrinkle. I don't know if they want to or why they're not. And I guess we'll talk about that. But
those turnovers are a doozy.
Yeah.
Jermaine Pickett, member for 26 months. That's a long time. Thank you, Jermaine. Kev F. Sherman and Jimmy Ward know the players are good. Kyle Shanahan's a clown. I don't think that Sherman wants to be a coach.
Yeah, why?
Quality control is a thankless job.
Yeah, make a lot more money, work a lot less doing what he's doing right now.
Okay, last player the Niners could potentially trade this offseason. Aaron Banks. The same logic we use for why the Niners might trade Brandon Aiyuk, Talanoa Hufanga. These are players who have accomplished a little something in the NFL, look like they could be quality starters. At least certain teams think that. And they will be up for extensions this offseason. Aaron Banks was a 2nd-round pick a couple years ago. He'll be up for an extension this offseason. And he's a pretty good guard. He might be able to get a nice little chunk of change on the open market. There might be a market for Aaron Banks. I don't know if the Niners would be in that market. They don't generally spend much money on guards. Like, the reason Banks is on the team is because the Niners didn't want to spend on Laken Tomlinson. Yeah. So they let him go, and they drafted Aaron Banks to replace him and have a guard on a rookie deal. Niners could do the same thing with Aaron Banks, just let his contract sort of expire eventually and replace him then, or they could trade him this offseason. What do you think they'll do with Aaron Banks?
Here's what they should do, and I hope they do this. The Niners have a reputation of extending people late, restructuring late. They have to absolutely invest in this offensive line. Aaron Banks is a solid player. They need to extend him and extend him yesterday, as soon as they can, which is, I believe, next year, right? After this season is the first time they can do that. They need to do that on day one while he's cheaper. If they let him continue to play and he performs even better next year, now he's more expensive. And that's the mistake that they've made in the past. Extend guys that you know are going to be important for this team early. Save yourself some money. That's what they should do with Aaron Banks. After this offseason, extend him as early as possible. Aaron Banks is solid. He is one of the building blocks of this offensive line. Who knows how long we got Trent Williams? Out of all the 49ers offensive line, out of all 5 of those guys, Banks is the only guy that I bet on being good here in the future. They got to keep Aaron Banks. I would extend him as soon as possible. I definitely would not trade him.
Now, I wouldn't give Aaron Banks, Laken Tomlinson money. Laken Tomlinson got $13.5 million a year. I can see why the Niners didn't want to give him that. But at the same time, like you should be investing in your offensive line. That's what the Chiefs would do. If the Chiefs had a choice between an elite wide receiver or a very good offensive lineman, they'd take the very good offensive lineman. They did that already and won a Super Bowl. They traded Tyreek Hill. I would do what the Chiefs do. They're the best team, not the Niners. Trade Brandon Aiyuk. He's a great player, not as good as Tyreek Hill. Get what you can for him, probably a first-round pick. I might even trade Talanoa Hufanga rather than give him $15 million to be a streaky safety. But Aaron Banks, that guy could be a linchpin of your offensive line for a very long time. You drafted him. You developed him. Yeah. He shouldn't be too expensive. I'd give him $10 million a year, maybe even more. Keep Aaron Banks.
Absolutely. They got to keep Aaron Banks. I mean, we'll see about Burford. Maybe Burford will become a guy they can keep long-term. I don't know. He's not playing well right now. Brendel is a temporary guy. He's got 1 more year after this. They got to find his replacement. Who knows when Trent Williams retires? And our
Banks
boy
is all you got. Really.
Banks is all you got.
Banks is all you got.
Yes. Yep. They got to have to. Must.
It's funny. But I think of all the 3 players that the Niners could potentially extend this offseason, I think they should extend Banks. That's the one. Now, he got hurt. Let's see how much time he misses. I don't want to extend a guy who's going to be missing time, and he didn't play his rookie year, and he doesn't have that big of a track record. So we'll see how he finishes the season. But to me, I think this guy is a key member of the team for the future. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about something else. Niners want to be a balanced offense, but the numbers indicate that they're anything but that. Ryan.
Well, what they need to do, if they're going to be imbalanced, if a team is going to be unbalanced in any direction in the modern NFL, that needs to be towards the passing game. The last, here's some examples. The last, 5 NFL winning, Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. 2019, Brady was 9th in passing attempts. 2019, Mahomes missed some games, but so he was 18th. But that was the error right there.
Yeah, but pass attempts per game, I bet he was pretty high.
Yes, he was. Brady was 2nd. In 2020, Stafford was 2nd in 2021. Mahomes was 3rd in 2022. Brock Purdy right now is 27th.
Right.
Okay,
right.
So if we're going to be imbalanced in passing attempt or have an unbalanced offense, it needs to be in the direction of passing attempts. This is a passing league. Kyle's doing everything.
And it's so funny when you say it like that. It's like, yeah, duh, it's 2023. That's like saying on a basketball podcast, man, I really think this team should start shooting 3-point shots. The rest of the league is doing it. It seems like something the rest of the league wants to do. We should start maybe incorporating the 3-point shot into our offense. That's sort of what the Niners are doing. They're a mid-range shooting, get to the hole, draw fouls team, which is cool. A lot of championships have been won that way, but it's not exactly where the league is right now.
And it really doesn't make sense, honestly. So Brock Purdy right now, he's averaging 1st in yards per completion. He's 8th in completion percentage. His interception right now is tied for 10th with 5, right? He does have a high turnover where he throws, but let the guy play, man. Let the guy play. Look, he's trending 4,320 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And he's 27th in passing attempts. I understand that the turnovers are a concern. But this is a passing league, man. If you believe in Brock Purdy and you believe he's the real deal, let him do his thing. See what happens. He might surprise some people. If he's trending 4,320 yards with being 27th in passing attempts, what happens if you're 15th? What happens if you're 15th in passing attempts? Now you're talking about a quarterback that's throwing for 5,000 yards and 30-something touchdowns. 49ers got to be more aggressive. They got to believe. If you have a quarterback on your roster, believe in him. Otherwise, find a new quarterback. If you don't believe in Brock Purdy enough to let him throw the ball, then get rid of him. I think they need to trust in him.
But this is Kyle. Like, this is who the Niners have. This is who he's always been. It's who his dad was. And it's interesting because a lot of his proteges, people he's, produced, passed the ball a lot. Not him, though. Like in 2016 in Atlanta, when he had that team that was so good, 26th in passing attempts. Like, this is just who they are, who Kyle is. He's so faithful to the run game. It's what he's all about. And that, to me, is another reason why he hasn't won a Super Bowl. Because it's not 1998 anymore. You win with prolific passing a lot. As you just pointed out, look at all the winning Super Bowl quarterbacks from the last 5-6 years. It's like, it's not even a tough trend to point out. It's so obvious. And Kyle's like, no. We're going to win my way. In a way that hasn't won since 1998 for a reason.
Right. Yeah. He's trying to, what is it? He's trying to, what is it? Weave when everybody else is, what's
zig when people
zig and zag, right?
Uh-huh.
And just do what makes sense. Like, do what's working for people. Invest in your offensive line. Develop a passing game. That's what it wins in the NFL.
Right.
The rules are catered to win like that, right? They favor passing. The NFL wants
but
passing.
Think about it. Shanahan's our brand. Okay, that's like telling McDonald's to get rid of the Big Mac and the special sauce. Like, they can't. Their brand is outside zone running. Straight up. Yeah. That's their brand. And if you say you're not going to be a run first team anymore, we're gonna prioritize pass protection over run blockers who can do the outside zone, then all of a sudden, who are they? They have then they just capitulated to the trends of the league. They have to be faithful and staunch on their own brand of football above all else in ways that Mike McDaniel doesn't have to be. His last name isn't Shanahan. He can do whatever the hell he wants to do, if that makes sense.
Well, Kyle, if you want to come out of the shadows of your father, if you want to put all that noise to rest that you're nothing but a product of your father, show everybody that you can do that by converting into your own version, your new Shanahan offense with the passing game, and stop doing this 1990s offense. You can win a lot of games like this. It's very unlikely you're going to win the big.
Don't tell us your quarterback's the real deal and be afraid to throw the ball when you have an all-pro tight end, two excellent wide receivers, and a running back who's the best receiver out of the backfield in the league, plus a fullback who can catch passes. Don't tell us you believe in your quarterback and you won't call passes.
Let him rip. Let him rip.
Yeah, we know why you won't let him rip, right? One, it's your scheme, but two, it's those turnover-worthy throws, those turnover-worthy plays. You know it is. Sorry.
You gotta let it rip, man. You gotta let it rip, man. If you believe in your quarterback, let it rip. Like, that's how I feel, man. Let Brock do his thing. Brock has shown that he's a good quarterback, man. He would have 5,000 passing yards if he was Brock Purdy. The way he's trending right now, he would have 5,000 passing yards if they were the 15th most. If they were ranked 15th in passing attempts.
But let's look at it this way, though. Prolific passers, guys who are top 10 in passing attempts. They're guys who can drop back and throw. Down 10, down 20, drop back, straight up, and throw. Purdy's more of a play action passer. He gets a lead. He hands off. He fakes the handoff. He rolls right. He rolls left. When he's in positions where he just has to straight up drop back and throw, maybe down a little bit, doesn't go so well.
Then don't tell us he's the real deal. Don't tell us he's the real deal, Kyle.
I didn't say that.
You did not say that.
Say that.
You didn't say that. Kyle did, though. If he's the real deal, then that shouldn't be the case. Like, that's not the real deal. If he can't do that, and I want to see, let him show us, man. Like, show us and let him. And here's the other thing that's really important too: is you can't ask him to do this in those big moments if you're not asking him to do that the rest of the time. You can't ask him to do this in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl like you did with Jimmy if you're not asking him to do it all the time,
right,
throughout the season.
And to your point, this is how you win in 2023. I know Mike Shanahan Jr. and John Lynch are a little stuck in 1998 to 2002. It was a great era. You know what I mean? A lot of good things happened. That G Unit came in at the round of the end. There was Cash Money. There was Dipset. There was a lot of fun things back in that time.
Yeah.
But the world has changed a lot. And I don't think you're going to win with a really good run game and a really good defense anymore. I think it's pretty clear. You need to be able to pass the hell out of the ball. And there are a lot of teams that can. Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville this week, they're going to have a serious quarterback. So we'll see if the Niners can keep pace.
It's the philosophy is just it's the unwillingness to pass, and it's the unwillingness to get protection for your quarterback. What's the last big investment the 49ers made in an offensive lineman? It was Mike McGlinchey, first round pick in
Trent Williams, but yeah.
2017. Trent Williams.
In the draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the draft, it was Mike McGlinchey. We had Aaron Banks, second rounder. Outside of that, that's been the only investment in the offensive line. They just continue to just put it aside like it's not important. It's the most frustrating thing for me as a fan.
Chris Tallarico says, we say invest in the offensive line. Kyle here's invest in the defensive line and give Huff top dollar. They won't put any money into the offensive line. They only value D-line for some reason. Because it's all about run blocking, and players who like take pride in run blocking are guys who are drafted in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6. Guys drafted in round 1 and round 2 are premium athletes who are taking that high because of pass protection. And I don't think Shanahan even wants those kind of athletes. I think he wants,
it's an
dogs.
Incorrect philosophy. It is
an incorrect philosophy, but they've been doing it since the 90s. Go back and look at the offensive linemen on the Super Bowl winning Broncos teams. It's the same idea. It worked better back then.
Yeah.
James Welsh says, people wake up. College interceptions, dropped interception, worthy passes, now interceptions being caught. This isn't going to change. This is who Brock Purdy is. Bet on that. We'll see this week. Josh Wyatt says, another reason for being 27th in attempts is the D can't get off the field. How do you rack up throws when you're averaging 12 possessions a game? They've racked up a lot of runs.
You move the ball better by throwing, right? You throw the ball, you can get first down.
Especially when their quarterback is the real deal. Speaking of the quarterback, Brock Purdy is third in QBR right now. I believe third. After Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, which means he's the third best quarterback in the league, right?
According to QBR, yes. I'm trying to find a statistic for you here. Or not even a statistic. Yeah, let's look at a couple of things, man. QBR has been bugging me lately. I've spent a lot of this bye week. Bye week's a little slow. I've spent a lot of the bye week diving into QBR and
excuse me. Brock Purdy's second. Forget that. Let's start over. Brock Purdy is second in QBR behind Josh Allen. Josh Allen 75.3, Brock Purdy 74.9, Patrick Mahomes number 3 at 73. That means Brock Purdy officially has surpassed Patrick Mahomes as a better quarterback. Isn't that true?
Here's the thing, this isn't an attack on Brock Purdy. What I'm about to say, it's an attack on QBR. Stop relying on QBR to define who. A certain reporter was pointing out passer rating at one point for Jimmy Garoppolo because Jimmy Garoppolo had a good passer rating. Now it's QBR because Brock Purdy has good QBR, right? Enough with that stuff. Watch the film, consider the team, consider the coach, all of these things. Here's this should tell you a lot about QBR. Right now, Gardner Minshew is ranked higher than Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, and Joe Burrow. According to QBR, Gardner Minshew is better than all of those quarterbacks, and he's the 8th best quarterback in the NFL, according to QBR.
I knew that. You didn't know that?
It makes no sense. I mean, think about it this way. And here, let me give you some stats on Gardner Minshew. 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 63% completion percentage, yet he's 8th in rating. CJ Stroud, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 62%. So 1% different on completion percentage, but Gardner Minshew is ranked 4 spots ahead of CJ Stroud. He's ranked 6 spots ahead of Joe Burrow. Stop relying on QBR. All I'm asking, the reason I want to talk about this is just as fans, analyze what you see on the field. Consider everything. Consider the team. Look at the film. Look at the players. Look at the weapons. Look at the play caller when you're analyzing quarterbacks. If you're just going to throw at me QBR, I'm going to write off your conversation.
Sounds good to me. I don't even understand. Yeah. If you're going to use a stat that no one will explain how to calculate, don't use it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And football is too complex, man. It's not like baseball, right? Baseball, you can do batting percentage and you know how good of a hitter they are. Yeah. It's not like baseball, man. There's so many moving parts. There's 53 players. There's a million coaches. There's these different opponents. There's scheme. Like there's all these things that factor in. Trying to quantify that in a rating system for a quarterback is just have a deeper conversation than that.
Also, why isn't QBR dinging Brock Purdy more for his struggles in the fourth quarter? It seems like whatever happens in the fourth quarter should be weighted more than the rest of the game. Like I keep hearing people say, like, "Hey, man, Brock played some of his best football in those first 3 quarters, the last few games." Like, so how many turnovers did he commit in the fourth quarter, though? I'd rather have a guy who struggles for 3 quarters and pulls out a victory somehow, some way in the fourth quarter than a guy who plays really great for 3 quarters and finds a way to lose at the end. I don't want that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know who Brock is, but that's who he was the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, it's still early on Brock Purdy. I need to see like 2 full seasons of a quarterback before I really get a grasp of who they are. So it's early on Brock Purdy. He can just ball out the rest of his career from here on out. He's always going to have 1 or 2 bad games, but it's what he does over the averages of the whole thing that kind of determine on who you are.
Agree. Ryan, it's come to my attention that no matter what happens this weekend, win, lose, draw, you're down on the Niners this season. Why?
Good question. The reason why I'm down on the 49ers this year, and I honestly, I'm a super optimistic person. I'm positive. I try to be positive. I don't like coming on here and being negative. But the reason why I'm down on the 49ers this year is because I had my feelings on who Brock Purdy is as a quarterback and who this offensive line is. Those 2 things were a concern for me. And again, I don't think Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback. I have him between 11 and 16 somewhere. And I think that's fair for who he is. I also have the offensive line somewhere in that route. And those things, 2 things combined, if you have a quarterback between 11 and 16, you have an offensive line between 11 and 16, to me, that's not a formula for a Super Bowl winning team. And it's that simple, especially if this defense doesn't get back to their old form. If this defense isn't going to be top 5 or even top 3, then forget about it, right? Like, it's ridiculous to assume that we're going to win a Super Bowl with an offensive line that's middle of the pack and a quarterback that's upper middle. I just don't see that as a formula for winning a Super Bowl. Right now, this team seems like a team that can win a lot of games, but can't go all the way, just like all of Kyle Shanahan's teams so far. And it's because the philosophy hasn't changed. The philosophy is the same.
Yeah.
And
it's like, to me, again, it's like an NBA team. It's like the best NBA team in the world that doesn't shoot threes. It's like, I don't care. You could have the best drivers, the best mid-range shooters. You could have it all. If you can't shoot threes at all, you're not going to win the championship. And that's sort of the Niners. Man, you have the best version of this kind of a team, but this won't work.
Right.
Yeah.
You nailed it. They have the best version of this kind of team that they could ask for. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have a really damn good defense.
They're the cheapest quarterback in the league.
So, right. If you want to play defense, if you want to win a Super Bowl with defense in a run game, you have that. You have all those pieces right now. So bring it home. You can't, because it's an outdated philosophy. You have to win in the passing game. You have to have a protection for your quarterback. And they're just doing things backwards. And that's why I'm just down. I feel like this team's going to win a good amount of games. They're going to make the playoffs. And at some point, they're going to go home without the Lombardi again. That's how I feel right now. And it's unfortunate because I don't want to feel like that. I'm a Niner fan, man. All I want is a Super Bowl. That's probably why I'm so passionate about when I talk about this stuff and why I do get negative, because it's disappointing for me. I'm tired of waiting and want my kids to see the 49ers win a Super Bowl, and it's been a long freaking time, man.
Yeah, I feel like if this team couldn't figure out a way to win a Super Bowl when they had Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, DeMeco Ryans, and Robert Saleh, they're not going to figure it out this year with Steve Wilks and Kyle, and that's it. I just don't think the coaching staff is nearly as good as it used to be. I think they had their shot, and I think they're sort of going the same way that the Rams went, frankly.
I think we're going to be here in 5 years, and we'll be close. I think they're going to have to break it down, come to reality, come to a Jesus moment, right? They're going to have to really just come to grips with, hey, the way we did this, we did the best we could. We built the best team we could with this philosophy, and it wasn't good enough. It's time to change the philosophy. And I don't know if he's ever going to get there, but I'm hoping he will.
Yeah. All right. Tell me why you think Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo have very little in common.
Yeah, I hear this one a lot, man. Like, and people really misunderstand who I am, like, as an analyst or a 49er fan. I don't want Brock Purdy to fail. I'm not a Brock Purdy hater, and I don't make comparisons like this. I really dove into it and was thinking about Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. Outside of the system that they run that produces the same amount of numbers, right? Their numbers are very similar. Their
Mhm.
production is very similar. And to me, that's because they run Kyle Shanahan's offense. They have similar weapons. So their production is going to be similar. But when you break it down, like who are these people, as leaders and as quarterbacks, they're very different. Uh, Here's where Jimmy, I think, is a little better than Brock. And then I'll tell you all the ways I think Brock is better than Jimmy. I think Jimmy is better at that first read on a short throw. If that first read's open on a short throw, Jimmy is money. He gets the ball out quick and accurate. Short throw, first read, Jimmy is money. After that, Brock is better by far than Jimmy Garoppolo. If he has to go through his progressions, Brock is better. Besides that, I think Jimmy Garoppolo has a better arm as far as arm talent, arm strength, but he's so scared to use it, it's almost pointless. Now, when it comes to Brock Purdy is a better processor to me than Jimmy Garoppolo. He can go through his progressions. He sees the field better. He's more mobile. He is not scared to let it rip. Now, he doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's not scared to make that throw. He is way more mobile. We saw it against the Bengals, man. I hope he keeps scrambling like he did in that game, but just make sure you protect yourself. I like who he is as a person. In the offseason, he's grinding. He's working. He's not impossible to find. Kyle Shanahan can call him and get a call back. All those things to me make Brock Purdy far better than Jimmy in that regard. All that being said, though, I had Jimmy 15 to 25. I had Brock 11 to 15 ish. So
Do
I
you
think
still have
Brock.
Jimmy 15 to 25? I feel like Jimmy's
No.
awful. Jimmy's like
That's
35.
he's bad right now,
He's
right?
terrible. He
Yeah.
threw 9 picks in 6 games. I mean, I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo validated some of his biggest critics like me. He went
Yeah.
to another team. He had Devontae Adams and
This
Josh
was on the
Jacobs.
Niners. My ranking of Jimmy was when he was on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's when he was on the Niners,
For sure.
right?
But I think like that's the thing with ranking these quarterbacks. You try to do it independent of the team. And that's
Yeah.
why it's hard to rank Brock. He's definitely way better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He wouldn't go to the Raiders and throw 9 picks in 6 games. But it's important to remember that Jimmy Garoppolo was a winning quarterback with a quarterback rating above 100 on the 49ers. He went to a team that had Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs and completely fell apart.
Yeah.
Completely fell apart. So yeah, they don't have that much in common because Brock's probably good and Jimmy definitely is not.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy was he was always like 20 to me, basically, even on the 49ers. And during his best years, that's how I saw Jimmy Garoppolo. Brock Purdy, I think, can be better than that. And when I rank Brock Purdy 11 to 16, that's like 16 games in. I'm not saying he can't get better. I'm just saying if I had to guess, that's kind of where I see him right now, where I never saw that with Jimmy. I think Brock is much better than Jimmy is. Whether he's good enough to win the Super Bowl or not, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't feel like that right now, but I would love to be freaking wrong. I really would. But I just don't like the Jimmy G comparisons because to me, that's a knock on Brock, and Brock is better in almost every single way than Jimmy Garoppolo.
I think you're right. All right, let's play some prize picks. What do you say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's get to the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. If you've watched the show before, you know. I did one with my dad this morning, so let's do different players. Let's do Brandon Aiyuk off top. 66.5 receiving yards, more or less. Let's get some audience participation.
I'm going to go more for BA. He's due a big game. I'm going to say more.
What? He's due a big game?
Yep, that's simple.
That simple?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go BA.
He is due a big game, right? It's been a while.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's go for more for Brandon Aiyuk. All right, Deebo Samuel coming off an injury.
And I'm going to say also to add on to that Jaguars run a lot of his own defense, and I think Brock Purdy has been more successful against his own. So I think that favors Brandon Aiyuk as well.
Okay. All right. Deebo Samuel, 49.5 receiving yards.
Man, it's tough with BA. He can take a 5-yard pass and run for 70 yards, or with Deebo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think all-purpose yards will probably be above that, but I don't know. I would say under on Deebo personally.
Less. Okay, let's do less. And let's do one Jaguar.
Yes.
Okay.
I know an easy one. I would do Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk?
If I was you, I would do Christian Kirk and go over. because
Yeah,
that's going to
because
be
he gets
Isaiah Oliver's man pretty much a lot of the game, and he's going to go off. That's the pick I would take.
all right, $60 to win 300. That's Brandon Aiyuk more than 66.5 receiving yards, Deebo Samuel less than 49.5 receiving yards, and Christian Kirk more than 55.5 receiving yards. Let's place the entry. Simple as that. Thank you, Prize Picks. You want to play? Use promo code Cohn, COHN, or Iggy, IGGY, either one, and they will match your first $100 entry. Thank you very much. All right, let's take some super chats.
The sun is like, this is why when I do
It's
shows
getting
in the
you.
afternoon, it's like, yeah.
Sorry about that. Rick James says, so season over and start betting against the Niners?
Against
This
the
week you might
Super
want to bet
Bowl,
against them.
Season's not over. They could win this Jaguars game. I actually think they're going to, as long as Trent Williams plays. I just don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Dude says, my friend, people in DC are hot that Young is gone. I don't think anyone thinks that team's going anywhere, though. Have you seen
Right.
Five Nights at Freddy's? No. Have you?
Mm-mm.
Marcos
I haven't
Vegas.
seen it.
Sorry. Chris Tallarico says BP throws mostly high percentage passes that inflates certain stats and makes you look better than you are. The picks are very concerning. I would say they're very concerning too. I'm not a big Brock Purdy believer, but I'm not necessarily a disbeliever. I'm just a person. David Montez says, how do you guys feel about putting Jair Brown in the slot like Jimmy Ward was in last year? I think no. I'd just put him at safety, play him.
I would keep I would keep Oliver against certain downs and use Womack. Kind of like Wilkes talked about it, that he might use a 2 nickel, rotate nickels and use different players to play that position depending on the matchups. And I think that's what they should do. These quick dudes Womack needs to be on these little quick dudes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Alonta 3 says, what is Kyle's record in fourth quarter comebacks? Like 1 in 37? Yeah, we want to hang it all in the 7th round pick. That is true. It's true. Chris Tellerico says this season might be where all of the questionable decisions are finally coming due. No Super Bowl this year. Maybe no playoffs looking at the schedule. Good thing they extended John and Kyle in week 3. That was a good call. That was a good call for sure. Kevin F says if Brandon Aiyuk is Brandon Aiyuk having a terrific season? Yeah. So he is.
Considering his opportunities, when you're trending 1,400 yards on a team that only is 27th in passing attempts, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Dan Serrano says, what's Purdy's NFL record exactly? There you go. And on that note, we shall end the show. Thank you for putting us in our place, Dan Serrano. Thank you for battling the sun and doing a makeup show with me on Tuesday. I appreciate it, man. This was fun. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you, Prize Picks. And thank you, God. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll be back tomorrow with Rob in the morning and Jesse at night. In between, I'll be in Santa Clara. The Niners are going to play the Jaguars this week. It's a big freaking week. Hold on. Tony Nagatani says Niners need to bench Burford and Feliciano and have Il Manning play left guard until Banks 100%. Best thing they can do is try to make the Super Bowl. I wish they had better options in the offensive line. Mm-hmm. It's not my first choice what they got going on over there. Ryan, great stuff. See you next week. Take care, everyone.